Hello everyone, today we're going to be building the profile card component from Frontend Mentor. So you can head over to frontendmentor.io/challenges and you can get this challenge and then we can begin. So I'm going to begin by clicking on restart because I already completed it, but you're most likely going to have a different button here. So click on restart. And then once I click on restart, then I can say download the starter, which are going to download the starter files for me. And then I'm going to say that download the starter files into this folder, which is called compressed. So save this. And then when I open it up, so when I open this up, you're going to see that I have the profile card component main extracted here. I mean the zip file. So I'm going to right click on it and then I'm going to say extract here, which is going to extract into a new folder called profile card component main. And then I'm going to right click and say open with code, which is going to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code into this folder, as you can see opening up. And then I'm going to say click on this and then open the design files, and then I'm going to open the desktop design so that we can have the design image as well as our workspace. So let this open up, and then I think I can close this, just minimize it for now because we're going to need it. So once this opens up, then we're going to have this in our workspace, and inside, if we take a look inside our index.html file, then we're going to have the default boilerplate for the head, and then we're going to have, this is going to be our entire card, and then we have our attribution. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this attribution into my website.com, and then I'm going to set the target equal to underscore blank with a rel of no referrer, so no referrer, and then change this to my name. And then once I have that, then I'm going to cut this out, so cut it out and place it inside the div with a class of container. So I'm using Emmet, which is an extension that comes pre-installed with Visual Studio Code, such that when I say .container, it's going to create a div with a class of container, and then I can just paste this in. And then once I have this, then I'm going to go inside my style guide. I'm not saving it yet because if I save it, then it's going to format, and I don't want it to format, as you can see. So I'm going to go inside my style guide. And inside my style guide, you can see we have a few primary colors here that we're going to need. And then we have the font size, which is by default 18 pixels. And then we have a font family of constants, and we need the 400 and 700 font weights. So I'm going to click on this, so control and click, which is going to open up this link. And then I'm going to create an index.css file so that it can have some default values inside. So inside my workspace, I'm just going to double click and say index.css, which is going to create the index.css file. And then inside my index.html, I'm going to cut this out. So cut it out and then remove this. And then I'm just going to paste it inside here like so. Separate it out. And then I'm going to reset a few things. So I'm going to target my asterisk, so my alt selector. And I'm going to say reset the margin to 0, reset the padding to 0, and reset the box sizing to border box, which just tells the browser to use the CSS box model. And the CSS box model is just telling the browser that always place margin on the outside and place padding on the inside of elements. And then I'm going to specify my body here, and my body, I'm going to specify a font family of what is the spelling, KUMBH. Let me confirm this. Yeah, with a fallback of sans serif. And then I'm going to specify a font size of 18 pixels because, as you can see, it says here, where is it? It says here that the font size, the name and the statistics are in 18 pixels by default. And then I guess for the other ones, we can change it out a bit. And then we have the primary colors here, the very dark desaturated blue, and so on and so forth. But I'm not grabbing them yet because I'm going to handle it in a moment once we set up, once we start our server. So let me go ahead and grab the 400 and 700 font weights from fonts.google.com. So the regular 400 and the bold 700, and then just use the import here, select this, and then inside your index.css, just paste it on top. So that now this font family is going to be specified on the body. And then let me go ahead and do this. Let me open our design, and we don't have any buttons and we don't have any links. So we don't need to specify a font family here on the button or the links. But I do need to specify because I've just realized that we have images. So we have this is a background image here, and then we have this image for the profile, and then we have these two images on the background. So I just want to specify that let all the images have a max width of 100%, so that they don't cause an overflow if they move outside of the container, and which means they are just going to be fitted inside the container, or fit. I don't know whether fit has a past tense or something. And then let me just specify the width here to 100%, which means take up 100% of the container in which they are placed. So I'm going to save this, and then now let's link our index.css on top. So link rel station href is equal to index.css. And then now we can just go ahead, and I'm just going to right click on this, and I'm going to say open with live server. And live server is an extension. If you go into your extensions tab in Visual Studio Code, you can search for live server, and it's going to give you these options. So I'm using this first one. It's called a live server by Retweet Day, and what it does is that it launches a local development server which supports hot reloading, so that every time that I save a change or that I make a change in my code editor, that is going to automatically reflect in the browser without having me to manually reload it. And it's really nice. So you can go ahead and install it if you want. I mean, there are other ways that you can open index.html files. So once you save that, then you can see that this reformatted, which I did not want. So I'm just going to say Ctrl and Z, which is going to do this again. But if I check in my browser, then we have this. So I'm just going to place this to the right, and then place my code editor to the left, and then we can begin to style this out. I mean, to build out the structure. So remove these spaces, remove this. So let's see, this is a div with a class of container. How is it structured? So we have an image on top, we have this image, and then this is positioned absolute within this image. So let me make this div. I'm going to create a div for this entire section, and then place in these two images inside that div, so that I can play around with positioning for each one of them. And then this is just going to say these are going to be list items, so a UL, and then this is going to be like an H1 or something. So let's go ahead and do this. So we have, wait a minute, Victor Crest 26 like that. Okay, so let me do this. Let's say a div here. You know, let me use articles. Let me use articles because I don't want to think of class names for everything. So inside this article, I'm going to have an image. The first image is /images / bg pattern top should be it. And because it's decorative, then I don't need to have the alt attribute. I can just leave it to be empty. And then below this, you have another image. So let me, inside this other image, let me just place it inside like, let me place it inside a div. So they can have this other image coming from /images / image vector. And then once we have that, then outside of this article, so outside of this, I'm going to create another article with an H1 that says Victor Crest. So push it upwards, and then it says, oh, it doesn't have a comma. So I can just place it inside a span and say 26, because now these two are going to be like, you can place this to be another element, but I've just decided to place it inside a span because, as you can see, it's just the color is just a bit different from this, and then the font weight is also different. And then below this, so below this H1, you can have a paragraph that says London. Then we can remove this. Oops, remove this. And then once we have that, then we're going to have this line here, which is going to be a border on top or a border on the bottom, depending on how we're going to style it. And then we have these three items. So these three items, I'm going to place them inside an unordered list. So I'm going to create another article, and this other article is going to have an unordered list with 3 list items like so. And this first list item is going to say 80k followers. So it says 80k, and then followers is styled differently. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say 80k, and then place in a span because we're going to be styling it differently, and then say followers. And we're going to do the same for this, for these others as well. So 803k, and then place in a span, and then say likes. And then we're going to say 1.4k, and then place in a span and say photos. And we can remove this, and you can see this is going to be the structure of our HTML. So I'm going to save this, and when I save this, you can see that this is what we have on the screen. Now this is not the correct image, I've just realized. So let me say BG pattern. Let me see what image it is. BG pattern card. There we go. So that's the correct image. Now the image that you just saw is the background image, so this one and this one, so we are going to add them in as well. So let's go ahead and let's style this out. So inside the body, what I want to do first of all is I just want to specify a padding all around of 1.5 rem, which is going to push everything inwards. And then I'm going to say display flex and align it at center and justify content to the center, and then set a min height of calculate 100 viewport heights minus 0.1 pixels, which is going to center everything, as you can see. And then I'm just going to say flex direction, set it to column so that this goes on the bottom here. So this is how you can center a div horizontally and vertically in CSS using flexbox. So the reason why I have this function here to calculate 100 viewport heights minus 0.1 pixels is that on small screens, on mobile devices, sorry, not on small screens, on mobile devices, viewport heights are not well supported, such that they cause a restructure of your content on the website every time that like you scroll up or down. So by having this to 100 viewport heights minus 0.1 pixels, then the evaluated height is returned in pixels, and pixels are much better supported. You can even have this as rem, but rem units are just a bit larger. That's why I use pixels. And you can, if you want to use rem, then you can specify this to like 0.01 to have it like a very small value, such that it's negligible as well. And we're going to have this. Now let's go ahead and let's add our top image and our bottom image. And the body also has a dark background color, so let's do that first. So let's try it out. I think it's dark cyan, so copy this, index.css, let's specify a background color and paste this in. Is that it? That is it, correct? And then now let's go ahead and grab our images. So our images, where do we place them? Let me try and place them on top of this. So let me place in a div with a class of bg-top, and inside here I'm going to place my image from /images /bg pattern top, and then just copy this, and then outside of this div with a class of container, so on the bottom of this, paste this in, change this to bg bottom for the class, and then the pattern is going to be bg bottom.svg. So when I save this, then we're going to have the top background and the bottom background here. So let's begin to style this out. Let's start with the images. So index.css, let's go below this, and I'm going to say that for the bg-top, I'm going to say position this as absolute, which is going to position it absolute relative to the body. As you can see now, it's here. And then I want to bring it to the top by 0 and to the left by 0, which is going to move it to the top and to the left. And then I'm going to add a z index here of -1, which is going to move it out behind our what's this, our div with the class of container. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the bg bottom. I mean, almost the same thing for the bg bottom here. So it's going to be positioned absolute, but now it's going to be positioned to the bottom and then to the right with a z index of -1, so that it also goes behind the image. Now on mobile screens, this isn't really visible, but when you scroll up to larger screens, then we're going to have this. And what have I done? Looks just a bit messed up, but we're going to fix that, don't worry. So let's add some more styles. Let's remove these bullets by default. Let's go ahead and let me increase the attribution as well. So 12 pixels. Why is my screen so dark? Oh, okay, that's much better. So we have 12 pixels, and then let's say, let's add a margin on top. So margin top of 1 rem. This is for the attribution right here. And then change the color to, let's change this color to white. So color, change it to white. That's much better. And then probably make this lighter. Oops, that's not a good idea. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe. Okay, so let's go back to the top. Below this, let's access the ULs, and then let's say list style type. Set this to none to remove the bullets. And then let's go inside our div with the class of containers. So here for the dot container, I'm going to say add a background color of white, #FFF. And then we're going to do this, set the width to 90%, so that it takes up 90%, or you know, not even 90%, 100%, because we have a padding of 1.5 rem on the body, which is set here. So 100% of this container is always going to go to the end, but with a padding of 1.5 rem on each side. And then we're going to say set a max width here of, let's say, 500 pixels, which is just going to limit it so that when we increase the screen size past 500 pixels, then the container is not going to increase in size. And then once you have that, then let's say we have a border radius here, and then we have a bit of styling. Okay, so let's add a border radius here. So border radius of 0.625 rem. Then let's see, so let's go inside this div, this article, which is the first one. Remember how we structured it? So we structured it as the div with the class of container and then this first article. So I'm going to be using pseudo classes. So I'm going to say for that, for the dot container class container, I want to access the article, which is the first child, meaning only this first article, and I'm going to say border radius, set this to 0.625 rem on the top left, and then 0.625 rem on the top right, and then 0 on the bottom right and on the bottom left. And then you know what, I'm actually doing this wrong because I want to access the image inside. So the first child, then the image, let me see, the first child, then the image. This is going to be an issue. Just wait and see. So we're going to have this, okay, and then we can do this. Let's see, so this is the image. Now let's access this second image, and the second image is inside the div. So just copy that and then say inside the div, and then access the second image, and then add a border radius here of 50% to make it rounded here. And then let's reduce the width to about 2 rem. How small is that? Too small. Let's say 4 rem. Let's say 5 rem. And then let's do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say position this as absolute. So position absolute. And then I want it to be positioned absolute, but within this entire div that has both images. So let's go ahead and do this. Let me check where that image is. It's inside this article. So I'm going to go back inside the article, which is the first child. So copy this. And then I'm going to say position this as relative, so that now this image is going to be positioned absolute within this article, so that now I can do something like this. I can say set it to the left by 50%, which is going to move it to the left, and then I can say set it to the bottom by minus 10%. How does that look? That's a bit too much. So let me do this. Let's say minus, how does minus 1 rem look? Let's say 2 rem. Yeah, 2 rem is much better. And then I just want to reset it so that it moves perfectly to the center, because you can see that it is offset to the right just a bit. So I'm going to do that by saying transform and translate on the x-axis by minus 50%, so that when I save this, then it's going to move perfectly to the center. And then we need to add a border on the image, because as you can see in the design, it has a white border around it. So here I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say border 3 pixels solid and white. And you can see that that happens, like the border is added, but 3 pixels is a bit too small. So let's say 6 pixels. Let's say 5. 5 is much better, and we can work with 5. And then now let's go ahead and get this second article. So for the second article, we are going to do this. I'm just going to do the same thing. So just copy this below this, and then say that for the nth child of 2, then I am going to say text align center, which is going to move all the text to the center. And then I'm going to say margin top of 3 rem, which is going to move it away from the top from this. And then I want to access the h1, because the h1 is this entire thing. And then for the h1, I'm going to change the color. Let me see what the color looks like. Very dark desaturated blue. I hope it is. Copy this and paste it here. Is that correct? That is correct. There we go. And then for the span, I think the span has the color of dark grayish blue. So just copy this. And then I'm going to say that for the dot container, I want to target the article, which is the nth child of 2, and then access the paragraph inside. Sorry, not the paragraph, the span, because the span is inside the h1 if you check our structure. So the span is this 26. And then I'm going to say change this color into this, paste it in, and then change the font weight into 400. Move this upwards, and then let's see what we have. And there we go. So we have that. And then let's access this paragraph below it, and the paragraph is going to have the very same like styling for this. So let's do this, and you know what, I can just actually add it here, because since it has the same styles. So I'm just going to place a comma and paste this in, and then change this into the paragraph. so that now even this is going to be like that. Okay, that's much better. But I'm realizing that there's a bit more space on top of this. So let me grab this, let me cut it out from here, let me paste it here, and then let me grab this style. So copy and paste. And I don't even need to have the font weight of 400, because by default paragraphs always have the font weight of 400, like the lightest font weight I should say. And then I'm going to say margin top, set this to 1 rem, pushed away from that. Okay, and then now let's access this third article, so the last child, because it's this article. So you can use nth child 3 or you can use last child. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it here, change this into nth child 3, and then I'm going to say this, I'm going to do this. Let's say I want to first add a border on the top. So border top is going to be 2 pixels and solid, and then it's going to be this color, should be, which color is it? The same color as the paragraph, so HSL 227, this one. And then we're going to have that 2 pixels thick, so 1 pixel. Is that even 1 pixel? It looks even lighter than that, doesn't it? There's no other color, so let's do this. Let me add an opacity here of 0.5. Let's say 0.3.2 to make it like very faintly light. And then I'm going to add a padding on the top, so padding top of 2 rem to push it away from this border. And then on this second article, you know what, even on the paragraph, I can just add a padding on the bottom of 2 rem as well to push it away from this, and then we're going to have that. And then now let's access this UL, so copy this, paste it below this, and then we are going to be accessing the UL, and I'm just going to say display flex, and then align item center and justify content to space between, which is going to space them out to take up the entire content. So save this, and you can see that's what happens. And now instead of just having padding on top of 2 rem here, because I want to add padding all around, then I'm just going to say padding all around of 2 rem, and we're going to have that, as you can see, looking nice. And then let's access the list items, so just copy this, paste it here, access the list items. And for the list items, I'm going to have a font weight of 700, which is going to do that. And then change the color into this one. I think that's the color on the no, that's not the color on the H1. What's the color on the H1? 229, 23, 23. So 229, sorry, let's remove this. So HSL 229, 23, 23. So that we're going to have this, and then let's increase the font size to about, let's say 1.5 rem. How big is that? So 80k. Let me see how this looks. Yeah, that looks almost correct. And then let's access the span inside the list items, because remember we added spans inside the list items. So span, if you check the structure of the HTML, so you have the UL, the list item, and then the span. And then for the span, what I'm going to say is display block, because I want them to always go on the next line. And then change the font weight into 400, make them lighter. Change the font size into 1 rem, reduce it back to 18 pixels, and then change the color into our paragraph color, which is this light one. And then is it uppercase? No, it's not uppercase, but it has a bit of letter spacing. So access the letter spacing property, change this to about 0.2 rem. How large is that? Let's say 0.1. Let's say 0.15. I can deal with that. And then it has a bit of margin on top, so I'm going to say margin top of 0.3 rem, pushed away a bit, just a bit from this paragraph, from not from the paragraph, but from like the main list item instead of the span. And then now all I need to do is just align this text to the center, because as you can see, this text is aligned to the center. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do, where was it? Li inside here. Let's say display flex, and it's going to say flex dash direction, change this to column, and then align item center and justify content to the center. There we go, to the center, not start, center. And then, and actually, you know what, I think I can just remove this, and then I can just say text align center. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's more than one way to, is it skin a rat or kill a rat, or like whatever the saying is. Okay, so once we have this, then I think this is going to be almost the end of the project. We just need to deal with our background images. But if I scale it up, remember we added a max width on the container, so that the max width now it's never going to increase past 500 pixels. And I'm seeing as though 500 pixels is a bit big, but let's see. And by the reason why you have this scrolling is because of the background images. So let me just try and reduce this container to about 400 pixels. So the container max width here, 400. I think I like this better. How does this look? I don't know. And then this is a bit smaller. It's a bit smaller. Now let me just have it as 500. And then let's go back inside our UL, where we have our UL font size 1.5 rem. Let's say font size 1.25 rem. Reduce it just a bit. How does that look? Too small. Let's say 1.3 rem. 1.4. And then let's go inside our list item, reduce this to about 0.9 rem. I think that's much better. That is much better. Now let's go ahead and deal with our background images. So increase this, and then let's go into the index.html. So bg bottom and bg top. So style it out. Let's go where we have our bg bottom, which is here. So position absolute, and you know what, let me disable this first of all. Having both of them on the screen is confusing me, so disable this. So we're going to have this is bg bottom, so bg top. So put it to the top left by 0. And you know what, the reason why it's behaving like this is because we have this here. So if I remove it, then of course nothing happens, and then this breaks, as you can see. So let me just add it back in. So bg bottom, let's go ahead and do this. So bg top dot bg dash top, and access the image, and then let's reduce the image to about 50%. So we're going to have this, and you know what, the image overflows outside. Okay, you see the image overflows outside, so it's not to the top by 0, which means that this styling is actually correct. Let me remove this. So push it to the top by, let's say about, how does it look? This is about like 50% of it, right? We're just going to try it out. So push the top by minus 50%, and then to the left by minus 50% as well. Let's see, that's a bit too big. So let's say about, come on. So let's change this to about 20%. 20% looks almost nice, almost, but I think it's to the top a bit more. So here, let's say to about 40. Yeah, push it upwards, let's say 50. Push it upwards, and then let's do the opposite on the bg bottom. So the bottom here is going to be by minus 50%, and to the right is going to be by minus 20%. So just do the opposite of these numbers here, and then when I save this and then go back into my index.html and enable this, then we are going to have this on the screen. But then realize how now we have a horizontal scroll bar, and then we also have so we have a vertical scroll bar, and then we also have a horizontal scroll bar. That's because of this image, and it's because of position absolute. So I think I can try to reset that by going inside my body, and right around here I can just set the overflow here to hidden, which means hide both horizontal scroll bars. And then now we don't have vertical scrolling, and we don't have horizontal scrolling, and yeah, the profile card is right there. So now that we have this, then I'm going to create a repository for it, and then we can submit it on Frontend Mentor. So let's go into GitHub, then create a new repository, and then we're just going to call this profile card component dash YT, and then I'm going to say create repository. And then let me also log into Netlify, because I'm going to deploy to Netlify. So log in, and then copy this link for the repository, and then we can begin to commit it. So let me just close all of these files. So open up my terminal using Ctrl and J, and then I'm going to say git init to initialize a git repository. And I'm going to say git add design, and then git add images, and git add dot git ignore, and then git add both readme, so readme star to add both of them, and then git add style guide.md, and then I'm going to say git commit. This is going to be the initial can I spell initial commit, and then I'm going to say git add index.css and git commit. This is going to be the index.css, and then git add index.html and git commit -m and say index.html, and then I'm going to say git remote add origin and then paste in my link to my remote repository, and then git push -u origin main, and then it's going to push to my remote repository. And the steps that I've just done here are these ones that are outlined here. And then now once this pushes, if it's going to push, there we go. Now if I reload this, then we're going to have our repository right here, and I'm going to leave this link in the description in case you want to look at the finished code. And then now let's go into Netlify. Let's open a new repository, create a new site, and the site is called the repository is called profile card component, so profile card dash component, and then just click on this and then just say deploy site, deploying, there we go. And then just change the site name here, change the site name into tsb profile dash card dash component, and then we can visit this link and we're going to have our repository right there, our component, not repository. The word was getting away from me. And there we go. Would you look at that, looking quite nice. Now I'm seeing that as though this image is just a bit smaller, but come on, like you can always change that stuff. So let's do this. Let me just change that. So border radius width, let me change this to about 6 frame, and then let's say git add all and git commit. Let me say -m, let's say increase profile image size, and say git push, which is going to push that change to GitHub, and then Netlify is going to rerun another build, and then it's going to deploy to the same link here. And as that is deploying, then I can go ahead and just copy this link and we can submit it on Frontend mentor source submit solution. Copy the live site URL here and then the repository URL here, paste it here, change this title into mobile first profile card component in HTML and CSS in vanilla, and then we can just say submit solution. And I think that should have made the change already. Yeah, there we go. You can see it made the change. And now that it has made the change, now look, it has messed up with the styling. Have you realized that? Messed up with the styling such that now the image is pushed upwards just a bit. So you can change that by just changing this to the bottom to like 3 rem. Because we increased it by 1 rem here, then the logic also says that if you reduce it by 1 rem, then it's going to move back to the perfect center. So let's say git add all and git commit -m, and I'm going to say push image to the bottom by 1 rem. Let's say git push. Okay, and you can see that our solution is already submitted, so we can say view solution, and this is our solution right here. So our solution is just a bit bigger, as you can see, just a bit bigger, but I think it looks nice. So yeah, that is going to be the end of the video, and if you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.